of the Epsom Bakehouse, and discussing today what type of yeast should you use when you're baking bread at home. And if you're using a particular type of yeast, do let me know in the comments. And if you like more of these bread making tips, recipes and more information about the live online classes that I do, then you can click the link below this live and you'll find out how to join my email list. So today I'm answering a question I received about what sort of yeast should you use when you're baking bread at home. And you might be thinking, well, perhaps there's only one type. Well, and why in fact does it matter? Well, there's a few different types of yeast, and really it comes down to a few things as to which one you might want to choose. So first and foremost, it's going to be what is your personal preference. And this might come down to things like what kind of breads you're baking at home and what your taste preferences are and what kind of time you have available. And then you might be thinking, well, what kind of yeast can you choose? So you may be very aware of the dried instant active yeast. So I've got some here that I've just got out ready for the live class that I'm teaching later today. And that is dried yeast, very small granules of yeast, and then you can add that straight into your flour. There's also dried yeast, which is similar to this, but it's bigger granules, and you have to rehydrate it in water before you can put it into your dough. So that's an extra, say, 15-minute step that you may or may not have time for, or you might forget to do, and then you're rushing trying to get everything done. So again, it's a choice which one you choose. You can also get fresh yeast, which is like a cake of yeast, and you have to keep it in the fridge. And it will stay okay in the fridge and active in the fridge for about 2 weeks. So you're going to need to know if you're going to use it up or not. So those are the three main types of yeast. There is, of course, also having your own sourdough starter, which is a whole nother discussion, but mainly I'm talking about the kind of commercial yeast available. So it will be a personal preference. There will be some taste differences. Some people feel they have a better taste when they use fresh yeast, or they just prefer the taste, or when they use instant active yeast. So that again will be a personal preference. So a lot of that will play into what kind of yeast you choose at home. Secondly, think about the convenience. As I've mentioned, this dried yeast can be added straight into your dough. It's also stored in the cupboard in a tin, and you can get it out and use it as long as it's still active, as long as you've not stored it beyond its use by date, or you've stored it open for a long time. It should still be active and it should still rise your bread. Whereas, as mentioned, the fresh yeast has got to be kept in the fridge. And if you're not doing a lot of baking, you might forget it's in there, and then it goes off and you can't use it and it has to go in the bin, and you end up having to get more. So that might not be the most convenient for you. So those kind of things will probably play into what kind of yeast you're choosing, the convenience to you, the taste that you prefer, and I guess the time you have available in baking your bread. One other thing to think about is the type of bread you're baking. So later today I'm teaching a live class baking these delicious cinnamon buns. And these are an enriched dough. So the dough has lots of butter, sugar, fats in it. And all of those things, when you add them into a dough, slow down the yeast. So sometimes it may feel that you get a better result with fresh yeast, which is a bit more robust in those, in kind of working through that. When you add in things like sugar that compete with the yeast, as well as feeding the yeast, the fresh yeast might be a bit more robust in rising that dough. So you might want to try out, when you're doing a very enriched dough, things like cinnamon buns, brioche, maybe even croissants, using a fresh yeast just to give that a go. However, that said, you can always use the instant active yeast. You might just see slightly different results. So again, taking into account the type of bread that you're baking is one other thing to think about when you are choosing a yeast to use at home. That said, I would guess that most people baking at home do use one of the dried yeasts. It's convenient, you can keep it in a cupboard, it's ready to go, you can add it straight into your dough if it's the instant yeast, and it possibly is the best choice if you're starting out baking bread at home, to have that more convenient to-hand yeast that's also quite easily available in the shops. Fresh yeast is a little bit harder to get hold of. You might want to ask, say, at the baking counter in a large supermarket, or find a reputable supplier online who can supply it, and that might be the best ways to do it. So that was a little overview of what kind of yeast should you use if you're baking bread at home, coming down to your personal preference and the types of bread that you're going to be making, the time you have available, and really what is convenient for you at home. If you have time and you want to do a few little tests, then you can try out those different types of yeast and see which one works best for you. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know what kind of yeast you're using when you're baking at home. I'd love to know, and whether you've tried out the different ones, if there's a preference you have. Also, if you have any other bread making questions you'd like answered, do let me know in the comments, and you can click the link in the comments below also to get access to sign up to my email list for more bread making tips like this and more information on my live online baking classes where we bake things like these delicious cinnamon buns. I'm really looking forward to teaching that class later today. So otherwise, have a lovely rest of your day, and I look forward to chatting again soon with more bread making tips.